Let me say a special good morning to our listeners. Those of you listening via Classic Radio, good morning. Those of you who are viewing GBN TV, whether it's Channel 7, Channel 11 or Channels 20, good morning. Our social media audience who is always there with us. Those of you via our Facebook, YouTube channels, good morning. Welcome to another edition of To The Point. Today being Monday, the 22nd day of the month of May. Time flies, huh? Time flies. Let me say good morning to Sylvan. Sylvan, good morning. How you doing, sir? Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you, GT, and good morning to your audience, wherever they are. Yeah. I am doing fine, absolutely fine.
As I was saying, just the other day you were saying, welcome to the month of May, huh?
Yes. And here we are at the back end of May already.
Yeah, already past the midway mark and looking to wrap up the month.
And heading to half of the year as well.
So certainly that, man. Certainly like that. Oh, so, folks, you know what happens on a Monday when Mr. McIntyre is here with me. Of course, we talk everything that is of a nature of safety. If I can put it in that, just using a simple word to describe the context of our conversation every Monday. Once it relates to safety, managing your safety, just everything that safety requires. Understand? That's what we speak about. And our subject line today, we still continue on the topic line of road safety. We're talking about that this morning a wee bit. We, of course, risk management on the adverse, situations. We're going to be talking about that also. But as usual, our bit of conversation that we do have when we start, but the happenings around for the weekend. How was it?
Yes.
So we were getting some rain for the last couple of days.
Right. So you guess we're going to be speaking about rain this morning. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as usual, we've been following what's happening, and we can follow through on what we understand is climate change, climate variability, and there
are people who just don't believe in that, right?
In climate change.
Climate change.
Well, don't believe that there isn't a God doesn't mean that there isn't a God.
So true.
I don't believe people who don't believe that there is climate change doesn't mean that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I listen to individuals who have their own philosophy at times, and they, these are just the natural way of the world. There's nothing about climate change. Things are just happening because it has to happen. That's just their philosophy that they go by,
And we respect the philosophers, and this is why life is very dynamic, and this is why we have left and right. This is why we have good and bad. So we can have useful disagreement, and we could have useful discussions. We could have disagreement to agree. And this is what make, in my opinion, life interesting.
And make it unique also.
Yes. You have opposing views. You have opposing ways. You have different people. So when people say, it was me, I would do this and I would not do that. But that's you. That's not everybody else. And this is why respect is due.
So true.
And we must respect each other and respect their opinion, because we are all different people. I don't know any two people who are the same. Whether you're a twin or otherwise, your facial look the same, but there are some little things that we cannot see that would be different. Even if in identical twins, there's a difference.
Yeah, so true.
So
everybody would have their own views about something that the other would not have it.
Absolutely.
As similar as they may be, but there's just something about them that's going to be different.
So looking at risk analysis and following the trend of the weekend, and we kind of brought in this intro in terms of what happened over the weekend, and I brought in the issue of the weather.
Yes.
And we are also happy to report, based on the accident statistics, that we haven't had any real report of any major accidents. Over the last couple of days, I've been having really cool discussions with police officers. We had a very in-depth discussion on disaster management, and we've been speaking about the police preparedness for the hurricane season.
Yes.
We had a lecture at the Central Division, was well attended. Members of the traffic department and the fire and all that were in attendance. But having said police, we always spend a good time on our intro. We want to, at this point, use the platform to commend the police officers who were promoted. I think it was about a week ago.
Yes.
There are a number, I think about 153 or 156 officers got promoted at all levels. And we're happy to say that there are a number of them within the traffic department. That very energetic young man who's always on the media.
Is it Paul?
Paul, man. Yeah, he was promoted. He's one of my young pride, so congratulations to him. And Miss Telesford.
Yeah.
She became a sergeant as well. And Mr. Baptiste, who was an inspector, he's an acting assistant superintendent. Good. So I really kudos to them. And the fire department, Mr. Panchu, and quite a number of them. When I saw them, I was really elated. I said, you know what? you guys feel like my children, my grandchildren that I nurtured come through the system, and now I'm beginning to be more proud of you.
Yeah, so and it raises the moral of the force also. Eh? It also raises the moral.
Congratulations to the RGPF. And I also interacted with the Community Relations Department as well, and they are really on board with me with the risk reduction in terms of road safety, all of that. They will be on with me sometime on the program.
Yeah, I had them in on Thursday of last week.
Right,
I had them
great.
I had them in Community Relations Department. I mean, it's a different conversation but it all fits in some way or the other.
Absolutely.
It all fits in.
So when we look at what's happening in the North Atlantic and the Caribbean, we're just about to enter the official hurricane season.
Yeah.
And usually before you come into June, there is that burst of rain traditionally that comes almost at the end of May. In the month of May, we have seen 2 major downpours. Yeah. One was about almost a week and a half ago, and then we had one over the weekend. Now with torrential rain and so forth, it's something that gives an indication that, the spring and the planting season is here, and the farmers rejoice over that. But with rain and wind comes some level of risk, and there are some levels of preparedness that people need to do. So when we looked at over the weekend what happened, we saw rivers that were overflowing its bank. We saw in some cases where some people had topsoil, they were washed away, and that went into the sea. We recognize as well that people who had debris and other things outside of their homes that was pulled against their houses. And in some instances we saw cases where people reported leaks in their homes, etc. And in some cases,
not knowing that was even a real
case.
It was a case.
We've had some small land slippage and rockfall in some areas that created some measures of risk. So that was our eyes on the issue over the weekend, how the rain affected and what measure of risk associated with it, and how people reacted and responded to it, and how going forward we can find a way of integrating risk management and road safety into the same bracket. So we looked at that from that angle, and this morning our focus would be on,
of course,
road safety under adverse condition, whether it is created naturally or otherwise, because we have quite a number of natural phenomena that do affect us, and it does impact on road safety. So we're going to talk a little bit as to some things that people can expect and how they can prepare themselves and others to ensure that while you're on the road, that pedestrians are safe, and you as a vehicle owner or someone who's supposed to be in control of a vehicle, that you do take some safety factors into mind.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Just to get into the conversation, because you spoke about it, and sometimes it gets to you as a driver. In conditions of the road, whether it's natural or unnatural. And the conditions that could lead to you not being able to maneuver the vehicle properly. And we talk about the safety of other road users, including other drivers themselves, pedestrians. How does one get to a level of understanding in terms of the risk that's involved, especially when conditions are not favorable for driving, if you could put for a simple way of saying it?
Yeah. So before I answer you directly, last week I had a conversation with a very senior police officer, and he was saying to me that one of the things they recognize with road users and some people who happen to have license, some of them are not very current with some of the road traffic signs.
Okay.
They are not very up to date in terms of some of the signals that may become a bit more modern, and so it produces a bit of challenge. There are some other factors that need to be taken into consideration. I think people with who are physically challenged, or people who have some sense of disability in some way or the other, they need some level of facilitation. And I know there are some people who are academically, orally challenged. They have some literacy challenge as well.
Just happen to get a license.
Get a license. And I know that there is an effort. The people who are not able to sit an exam right and so forth.
Get it done orally.
They get it done orally. And what we are scrutinizing really closely is whether or not that oral process prepares people sufficiently for the road, and how do they read. And I'm touching a really nice and saying, how do they read and understand issues on the road if they're having that reading and writing challenge before sitting the exam? Because an examiner may sit with them, hold a discussion, and yes, you satisfy the condition.
Somebody could read to you fluently, or speak to you fluently.
Right.
Without, because some people probably have a memory factor that is good, so they may just remember things.
Right.
But they may not be able to read the written word, but you could tell them and they could repeat it.
Absolutely.
You understand. But doesn't mean that they understand what they speak of sometimes.
Absolutely. Because by and large, I think the exams that are being set, we use the old highway code. It was a British highway code that people use. And I'm not too sure if we have generated a real local code that suits all of the condition. You may say, yes, the highway code that is generated, it kind of fits into the international standard that if you are able to master it, you should be able to drive a vehicle. And I remember one time Grenada was giving even licenses that were recognized internationally.
Yes.
But things have changed generally in how you handle certain signs and how you deal with that. So we are scrutinizing from the Asha McKinnell Road Safety Foundation how well the exam situation and the conditions with signs and signal, how people adapt to it, and how we facilitate those who have limitations in doing the exam in the traditional means. How will they and how are they coping? And we're also examining, as we mentioned in our earlier program, the statistics. How many of these persons are having or meeting in accidents, or not necessarily meeting accidents, but sometimes you may not be in the accident yourself, but you may create the accident by the way you drive, or your inability to recognize certain risks or certain hazards while you travel on the road.
You know, it kind of take me back a wee bit to something that you spoke about in the initial start of when you start speaking. And you said that, there are individuals who may not be able to read and understand signs and are on the road driving. Whose problem is that, really?
It is our problem. And when I say our problem, I mean our state mechanism. And so one of the limitations we have in our island, there are some things that we roll out really quickly with, and we go ahead of a lot of islands and territories around us, and there are others that we are behind with. There are some things that we do not roll out fast enough. And I think some of the traditional means of examining things and processing things, we are sometimes doing catch-up. We allow things to get too far.
Yes.
We allow things to happen, and then we play catch-up. So, foundation like ours that would raise and make the issues more visible, more current, and so cause the lawmakers to ensure that they visit the issues, and those who are creating the instruments that they would periodically have checks on them so that they could be upgraded. I think we need a bit more of that, and this is one of the reasons why this initiative was created, so that we can keep the issues that people come across on a day-to-day basis. We could really have them change and to be brought into really make it more user-friendly in a modern world and society. So going back to your question in terms of how someone can really prepare themselves for dealing with the adverse conditions as drivers, remember last program we were speaking about the psychological readiness?
Yes.
Well, preparing yourself for dealing with various risks on the road, whether it is created by a natural phenomena or not, it also hinges on that of the psychological readiness. Because technically, if you prepare a vehicle and you do your checks and balances, if you prepare yourself emotionally and otherwise to face the road, a lot of things really fall in line. There is something in the military that you call the PMCS, the pre-test, the checks, and what is called the management or the checks of a vehicle before one goes into using it. Not very many drivers check their vehicles before it gets on the road. And one of the reasons why this does not happen too is because we do not manage time effectively. Everything is in a rush. Now, if that becomes a process where, one, you would check your brake fluid, you would check your battery levels, you would check your gas levels and so on, and all the fluids that would be necessary, that too are power steering fluid. It takes only a few seconds for your power steering fuel to leak out. And I remember just a couple of evenings ago, I had my vehicle. I packed overnight, and the next day I went off, and my steering was really stiff. When I looked at it, one of the pressure lines or something like that just popped, and the fuel leaked out. Now, to maneuver that vehicle became a challenge.
It's more heavy. It's more. As you say, more tight.
Yes, it is, and sometimes you can't maneuver it because it becomes so steep. Imagine this happened to you while going around a curb, and there's an oncoming vehicle otherwise. How do you deal with that situation? So now, we are speaking about preparing for adverse conditions and how you deal with them. One, you must ensure that at most times you have a preparedness kit in your vehicle. How many persons actually have like a first aid kit in a vehicle?
I mean, I would say really about 90% of individuals don't have a first aid kit in their vehicle. I mean, we're still giving a little leeway at 10%. But there are about 90% of individuals who drive on the road today may not have a first aid kit in their vehicle.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we may just think it's just not necessary. We just think, I don't have one in my vehicle.
Right.
You understand?
Because we're not cultured that way.
Yeah.
And because sometimes emergency happen in such a time where we think it's the hospital and somebody else's responsibility. It's not mine.
Leave the responsibility for somebody else.
Correct. And the other thing is that how do we prepare what we need to take with us on the day that we need to leave? What time do we prepare that? Do we do preparedness the night before, or do we do things the wee hours of the morning, or do we do it just the few minutes before we jump out of the house? Now that has its implication. Third, how current are we with weather patterns, weather phenomena, and what's happening around us? Are we in tune with the National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA office? Are we listening to the weather news and so on to figure out, is it going to rain today? Will there be wind? And if it's going to rain, what likely will happen or with rain? If it's going to be windy, what is likely to happen with wind beyond its normal threshold? Yeah. Branches are likely to fall off.
Is my vehicle appropriate for driving in rain? Do I have the proper tires? You understand? All of these things. May I be driving in a particular tire because it's dry for the last couple of months? Now is the tires that I have appropriate for the rainy conditions? And now we don't put these simple ideas into thinking about. And, they could make a whole lot of difference in terms of saving our lives.
A massive difference. And I was just about to come into that aspect of the tires and the other things that one. Because as you mentioned, the traction of the tires. There are tires that are suited. They are all-weather tires or all-terrain tires, and they are ones that are best suited for particular weather. There is a process called hydroplaning. Hydroplaning refers to the process where water interact between the surface and the vehicle wheel that you're traveling with. Now, a vehicle wheel does not have that depth in terms of the grooves on it. It limits what you call the traction that it can have. So there's hydroplaning now starts, and your vehicle becomes unstable on the road, and it creates some level of risk where a vehicle can run off. So when the police inspect a vehicle, or someone is stopped by a traffic warden and says that the beads on your vehicle, they're not deep enough. And
sometimes we take the incident saying, is it that a concern of the police? I have heard individuals say, why are they worried about my tires? It's my car. I'm supposed to be the one worried about it. But it have a level of importance in terms of the inspection.
And that may not, the risk factor involved may not generally or necessarily be yours, but it could be another person. Sure. You may apply your brake, and the brake may not hold at the time. You might end up being safe, but a pedestrian or another vehicle that is ahead of you may have an impact, which may result in some level of risk or in some level of damage. And when you have risk associated with it, you may have injury, you have damage. It slows down everything that you plan for the day. It brings on now anxiety, it brings on anger, and then it creates a different reaction that will impact on your whole aspect of how am I spending my day. Yeah. It goes right into the job.
And it's just because of you were not prepared to do the right thing at the appropriate time before. We do for a break. Let's take it, and we come back and chit-chat some more. It's To The Point for today, Monday. We coming right back, folks. Stay with us.
Do you know, when you play the games of the National Lotteries Authority, you are supporting sports, culture, and nation building in Grenada, Carriacou, and Titimaknik?
Hi, I am Junior Murray, cricket coach, sports enthusiast, and a former West Indies cricketer. I endorse the games of the NLA 100%. For the past 40 years, the NLA has been funding many sporting activities, including competition for schools and clubs, and for athletes to participate in overseas tournaments such as the Carifta Games and regional cricket tournaments. Additionally, they made it possible for you, the public, to view local, regional, and international tournaments from the comfort of your homes. For those reasons, I play the game of the NLA. Even if I do not win, I know Grenada always wins.
Yes, when you play all the games, the NLA in turn supports sports, culture, and nation-building activities throughout the Tri-Island state.
That's why I say welcome back to our listeners and viewers. Welcome back, Mr. McIntyre. Welcome back once again. Let's sort of point here on Classic Radio and the GBN TV for today, Monday. Now, we spent the last couple of minutes speaking a whole lot about, that mental preparation that an individual should have, especially when it comes to road safety, the do's and don'ts that individuals should do, especially when they want to get on the road. And last week, having of course, the gentleman with us, that's Hector. He spoke a lot about the psychological part that individuals need to just psych yourself up. Mm-hmm. You understand, in terms of before you do things, especially going on the road and drive and stuff, you should have that mental preparation. Mm-hmm. Now, we're getting into, as we started off also in the start of our conversation, we were talking about weather conditions and so forth. And we know that we're leading into the rainy season right now.
Right.
We're going to wrap up the month of May soon, June. Although the forecast predict we're going to be having an extended, dry spell for some reason or the other. We're hoping that it's not the complaints been getting about water and so forth. I'm hoping that it doesn't lead to that. But let's say what's that preparation that individual should have, especially when it gets to the conditions out there, weather conditions. It may be a foggy area. You go into the Granite Tank area. It's, there are times you go to a particular time of the day, especially when it's late at night. It's foggy and stuff like that. Well, how does your preparation and safety comes into play here?
Well, I am happy that we're taking this angle, because that's exactly down the road we wanted to go, because there are quite a number of road users that sometimes are not well prepared to handle those kind of adverse conditions. And hence the reason why we thought the program was going to be very prudent this morning as we delve into the hurricane season. And just to indicate, there's the preliminary prediction for the 2023 hurricane season, that it is just around average, above average sort of a condition, where they're expecting about 13 systems to come through. And about 6 of them is likely to become hurricane, and about 3 of them are likely to become major hurricanes, and so forth. Now, when you have that kind of a prediction that you walk in with, where you have 6 hurricanes that are likely to be generated, it is saying to you that we, within the Southern Caribbean, we are facing a particular risk that is with us every year. But the more hurricanes that are predicted, is the more chances Grenada is likely to be impacted by one of those. Right. And again, not a means of comfort, but or scare. But when hurricanes are forecasted, it may not be direct impact. But as we said on previous programs, there could be indirect impact where one of our territories get impacted, and Grenada itself will suffer some of the consequences because of what we are likely to lose or not benefit from, because resources and otherwise have to be directed to other places. So but as we look at our own neck of the woods, what happens here? We do not have fog per se in this part of the territory, but we do have mist, and at times we have very dense misty mist that comes through, and with that there is a particular way that one can drive to ensure that you have some level of safety. One, when there is a misty condition, obviously your speed limit should be should be lower.
Should be reduced.
Because your should be reduced. Your visibility becomes less. There are times your level of visibility may be 4 to 10 feet that you are able to see based on the density of the mist that would be there. What that says is that it is okay at times to put on what people call your fog lights. When one drive at night and there's a misty condition, drivers who may have the experience, you can check it yourself, that having your light on bright sometimes doesn't help you very much. If you have your light on dim, it shortens the span in which your visibility would be, but it gives you a safer and a closer indication as to where you are within that zone. What can also happen is you may not be able to average the side of the road as good as you should under normal circumstances.
Yes.
So whenever there is an oncoming vehicle, the thing that every driver should do on approaching lights of another vehicle is to slow down considerably. If for some reason that other vehicle light is on bright, one should blink his own light to indicate to the oncoming vehicle that I am having obstruction from your light.
Okay.
In addition to that, one must never look directly into the headlamps or lights on an oncoming vehicle. Always give it a glance on, not direct head on. What that does, it impairs your own vision for a while. It gives you a temporary blindness that can last for about sometimes 3 seconds if you directly steer into an oncoming very bright light. If you are temporarily obstructed for some reason, you slow down or stop. Shut your eye really quickly if you stop and then open it again to regain your vision.
Okay.
If for some reason you are proceeding and you're doing that slowly, if you want to ensure that you are safe from getting off the road or running into that other vehicle, your best chance is to glance or look at the left side of the road, which is the side you should be driving on. So for some reason you are having difficulty in averaging where you should be, your best bet and chance is to look to the left side of the road rather than steering into the oncoming vehicle.
Okay.
Another safety factor in driving under misty condition as well. The mist may be created and your windscreen also becomes foggy, so to speak. Most people are not aware that the heat condition inside the vehicle would create more of the fog on your screen. So what reduces that is your air condition turned on. The average sometimes person isn't quite aware that your AC then, and there is a controls lever on your dashboard that has some little lines with a frame that shows your windscreen. Now, if you switch, you turn onto that, it sends the breeze that comes from your unit onto the screen and it clears it up really quickly.
And it works to defog your windscreen.
It works to defog it. Rather than one getting distracted, trying to find a piece of rag or something, asking somebody to wipe your windscreen for you, it throws you off considerably. And this is why air conditioning is not a luxury per se. It is a necessity both in heat condition and cool condition, because that's one of the things that would clear your windscreen really quickly. I think we can take a caller before we get into another of the safety aspect.
Let's entertain a caller. Caller, good morning, welcome.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
To Mr. McIntyre. And I heard him spoke about checking the areas when the rain is falling and so to identify some of the problems. And that is the right way to go. In the past times, there was some engineers called like Mr. Ari Phillip, Ronnie Spitt, Mr. Ogilvy. These guys come out in the rain and check area, and that is what you're doing. And that is very good. Now, what I want to say concerning the traffic, I think that the police should have a program on the television that you could say, okay, 7 o'clock, this is the traffic direct things that come in to show how to do everything, the traffic, so you can learn from that. Second, I want to pinpoint something to you. There's an issue on the coroner that I look at. I want you to go and look at it because it caused 2 bicycle accidents there. There are some pieces of iron, what they call grills. And the way they place is that the bicycle wheels are going down and that. It's placed in the wrong angle, and it is a serious emergency. When you have a time, you pass and look at it. Then we have a bus stop on the opposite side of Wall Street when you're going on the way to St. George's. That bus stop is placed, the shed is placed the wrong position. It should be moved forward. It pros to the bottom side when you leave the roundabout coming up, and that is right where the bus is stopping. So if it was at the further end, it may make a big difference. Then concerning by Sugar Mill, they just did a work there, and they make a big drain where no one can really see. You can actually go to. It's like a tunnel. And now there's open up the system way from Montu coming into that. And what they did is very bad because that type of drain that they put there and cover up. We need to put what you call a grill or a strainer there, so don't let the water, all the debris getting inside there, because within 5 or 10 years, it's going to create a problem. Then Montrouge, the flooding in Montrouge, I don't know if you know a place called Grand High. Grand High, that's up in the south down here. Water from Craig in Grand High is going down to Montrouge, which is not supposed to be. All these things is creating problems. Sometimes it's good to check with people in the area, especially some of the elderly people that know things from before and could help to give ideas and solve the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you, caller. And certainly an interesting contribution there. And
yes.
certainly made a lot of sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the caller actually just linked into the other area that I was going to be speaking about, how we can deal with flooding situation and so on. But I just want to tell him thanks for his contribution. The grill that he's speaking about, I think I'd seen it myself. It's something that we want to draw to the attention of the traffic and transport, not necessarily traffic.
Ministry of Works.
Ministry of Works was responsible for the road. And one of the challenges that we have, a lot of time that road works and other works are commissioned and contracts are awarded. I think the inspection and follow-up process leaves a lot to be desired. And
I think how the grill is going,
it runs in the same direction as the vehicle. It should run across.
And it should be running this way,
yes.
but it's going this way.
Yes.
I think I have noticed it also. I have noticed it.
Yeah, that's one of it. And in terms of the flooding situation, and he spoke about the one by the Sugar Mill area, I think they did some work, and there's this massive building that's going down there. And that area, I don't know how much study, hydrological study that they do in terms of that area, the amount of water that comes in there. But I think the rain, the receptacle there, is the drain seems to have been reduced a bit. And maybe the completion or the completing of the project, you may see grills going in there. But I've heard people speak about concern as to the width of the mouth of that area, the amount of water that should come in there, that it may not be able to accommodate it at the amount that comes in from the Montu area, etc. So it's one of the things that we have observed and we speak about consistently, and that when contracts and other works of these are awarded, that the proper study, especially those of the local knowledge, helps a lot in engineering designs and so forth.
I mean, that caller always persistent in that. He seems to have a lot of knowledge in terms of how things are supposed to be done. And sometimes consultating with folks in the vicinity can certainly help you.
It does help a lot.
They spend more time there, so they will understand how things are working. Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning, welcome.
Yeah, morning, GT, and morning to Mr. McIntyre. Yes, the caller before was right. Indeed, there are some places in the city in particular that are dangerous for people, even pedestrians. I myself in the past have nearly lost my legs because, for instance, somewhere by the Ministry of Finance, there used to be, I'm not too sure it's still, this culvert or whatever. And one day I stepped on it and I actually went down in it. I mean, not fully, but I began to go down. So we need to look at some of those things. Sometimes we wait until accidents happen, until tragedy, and then we take action. So people like the citizen who called, he's making a valuable contribution. I think we should applaud that. In terms of, I think the same caller talk about having something on the television with the police. I think that should be encouraged, but that should not be sort of the sufficient, because there are people who would never watch a TV. There are people who would never listen to radio. We have to find a way to reach all who are concerned. And as I said previously on this program, some of the people that the information that is being disseminated right now, or the knowledge, need to reach, are not reaching them because they're not able to listen now because they might be at work, and some of them can't care too less. So we have to find a way to ensure that everybody is on board, otherwise we're endangering one another's life. And finally, in terms of, I think just as though we expect vehicle owners to have annual inspection, I don't know if we could apply this year, but I'm suggesting since it was raised. In Canada, where I spent a small amount of time many years ago, one of the things, and then I was even in television at the time, one of the things I was taught is that in terms of a picture is what a 1,000 words, is an incident that happened on the first day of snowing, when, because people didn't change their tire, caused a lot of accidents. So maybe we need to get people to understand that, first of all, when the season is changed, they need to get more secure, more tires that will grip and that kind of stuff. So maybe we could find a way so that people don't drive, endangering people like with tires that are worn out and smooth, and when the rain comes, it has to run things off most rapidly. So I hope I'm making some sense. Thanks.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for your contribution. We drew for a break, Mr. McIntyre. When we come back, we should chat some more. Stay with us, folks. It's To The Point. We're coming right back.
On Saturday, July 29, Montrouge Plainfield will be transformed into a sea of grills as food, fun, and friends collide. It's the 10th annual Maggie King of the Grill competition. The best chef and barbecue kings and queens compete for cash, a new grill, and the title of Maggie King of the Grill. Come savor the flavors. Try to bust the ice cold bar and let the kids have their way in the bouncing castles, pony rides, slides, and games. Try your hand at dominoes or the beer and leg competition and win instant cash. Come 7 p.m. you go stateside to enjoy performances from top local acts. It's a whole evening of fun at the Maggie King of the Grill, Saturday, July 29 at the Montrouge Plainfield. Gates open from 12 noon. $10 get you on the inside. Powered by Maggie, Hot 98, and GBN Television.
On Caribbean Passport, it's time to tour St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Planning a destination wedding? Well, Barbados is more than a beach getaway. And let's enjoy delicious cuisine from Chef Chris De La Rosa, right here on this station.
welcome back to our listeners and viewers. It's to the point for today, Monday, the 22nd day of May. Welcome back once again to Mr. McIntyre. As we continue with our discussion this morning, we still want to continue our discussion in terms of road safety and the conditions, in terms of individuals, be able to manage themselves on the roads. And we spoke a wee bit about, the misty conditions. Now, let's talk in reference to flooding and so forth.
Yeah.
As the rain's been having the other day, we're going to get into the month of June pretty soon, where we may see more rain coming. You never know, hurricane conditions may apply and individuals may have to use the roads. How important is having a proper knowledge of using the roads come into play here?
Yeah, that is critically important. There are a number of factors with road safety and flooding situation. You may not have a particular flood that may generate a risk where you may have damage to property or damage to vehicle, etc. But the probability of that happening is very real. One of the risks associated with flooding is that of vehicles being taken off from the road. They can be either swept away, or by driving through water, one can lose control very easy. And what happens when a vehicle comes through water, once the water gets onto that vehicle, it creates less stability. And as the water rises, it creates what is called, with buoyancy within there.
And they always say the density of the water now. We see big ships, huge ships already, and they were able to float. So
that's correct.
You understand.
So that happens with vehicle. We've had an unfortunate situation one time somewhere in St. Andrew, where I think it was a female who was driving through with a vehicle, and
we had that issue also in the River Road area one time a couple of years ago.
And what we understand unofficially, that they were advised you should not drive through. And one of the misnomer which we understand that was brought in was that the vehicle is four-wheel drive. So once you get it in four-wheel, people would believe that if you get it in four-wheel, that will help you to get across to flood situation.
Doesn't mean you're going to get a traction.
That will not help. The four-wheel will not get traction if a level of buoyancy is created, and so the vehicle will be swept away. It would almost float, and it will be taken off the surface and get into another place where it can create either damage or death to passengers or other persons somewhere else. What is advised that persons do not venture or drive your vehicle through areas that is flooded. For instance, there might be a river, a bridge, or some ravine that may overflow its bank, and you may think, well, my vehicle is four-wheel drive, it is a Jeep, it is okay, it is durable, and I need to go across. Please do not take those chances. That is one of the things that people need to know, that buoyancy is created very easy with not much water.
At least even the size of a vehicle may not matter at times. Some people feel, I have a big truck or big, it may be able to, but sometimes you cannot think what water can do. You understand?
It really doesn't. And the other factor here is that most of our vehicles these days, they are electrically driven, meaning that they are
their control system and the control mechanism is electronic
and otherwise. And once electronics and electrical interact with water or any form, it will shut down.
Yes.
And this is why if one gets through a vehicle, and the second reason where you would get there, and as the vehicle wheel turns, the water gets into the system, it's going to shut it down. Create another hazard, create a backup, create some people to get frustrated, create other people to get angry, and then that could be another challenge. We look on the other angle of that of being road courteous. When there is water on the surface, drivers need to not just be driving that level of care for damage, but for spilling water on other persons who are walking. It is unhealthy, one, for water to spill from persons from a surface that where quite a bacteria and other germs can be in. It spill. Secondly, the clothes can be soiled, otherwise they would have to return and get cleaned up or otherwise. And then it shows a level of disrespect otherwise when water is just splashed in on
And it's not only for individuals who are walking, but other drivers too. You ever been driving and someone moves through water and it splashes to you on the inside
into your vehicle, and that creates some level,
and it makes you uncomfortable. No, you understand.
So what we need generally, whether it is a flooding condition, whether it is a rockfall condition or land slippage condition where the road space would be reduced, and whether it is a condition generally that may limit one's ability on the road to move as they would not in normal circumstances. Vigilance and being alert is critical when one gets on the road.
All right. Let's entertain a caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you very much.
Good morning to you.
Yes. Let me first start by saying, deleted sympathy.
Caller, you may have to speak up. We're actually not hearing you at all.
All right. Let me start saying, deleted sympathy to you, Mr. McIntyre, on the passing of your son in this coming week. Think about it is, you, Mr. McIntyre, has been a police officer for many years. And most of what you are saying here, you are absolutely correct. But you know what's strange, what I find strange? Why is it only now, that these ideas are popping up? Anyway, I'm not very angry over it, and I'm not political about the idea. Paula mentioned about the grills, also the bus stop. And again, I would like to say, this caller is correct. He's very, very... All of this was done under the watch of NNC administration. I wish you all good.
Caller, caller seemed to have a problem with his phone because for the time he just dropped out for whatever reason.
Right. And he seems to have a problem, a little issue in terms of the timeliness of the program. So it's not the first time I've heard it. Why now that all of this information is coming out? Well, some things don't really happen before it's time. And I can say to the caller that while I was very active within the RGPF and within NADMA, etc., it did not afford me the time to express. And part of my responsibility was also to have empowered other persons to have done it, which they were. And now that I am afforded more time, this is a free program. I'm giving off my time to do that because I have it, and this is why it is happening now. It is not that the information was withheld. And a gentleman told me one time, he said, man, the information that you giving now, that is so relevant. But why when he was there inside you did not do it? It was not within my span of control then to physically appear and speak about it. But yes, I would have been doing my job within the levels and limits that I had to ensure that things would happen. It doesn't mean that if it did not happen then, that I have the time I should stay mute. But whether it is late, and sometimes it is better than never.
Late than never at all.
And I think the program is serving its purpose. And I wish to reiterate, it's now that I find the time and I have the time. It's now that I'm giving of my time, my resources, and my energy, and hopefully that people would appreciate that.
Mr. Sylvan, I will thank you a whole lot about that in terms of what you mentioned. Let's continue on the trend, because one of the factors that continue to drive you to be here is yes, we understand the death of your son due to a road fatality, and the foundation has now been started. Let's drive a little bit into the foundation before we get into the wrapping up stages this morning.
Yes.
How in depth is the foundation now in terms of preparation and the advice you want to give to the authorities in terms of helping in terms of road safety?
Our foundation is well placed right now. We are currently going through the internal administrative arrangement in terms of the directors, the body, the mandates, and so that will be released to the general public in short time.
Okay.
There's really growing interest in terms of the support for Grenada in terms of road safety. One of the things that we're doing really quickly, we are designing quite a number of road signs that we find are very limited in terms of safety across Grenada, because remember that safety is not an issue that affects only St. George's. And we want people to know that even P.T. Matnick do have road safety issues. Yeah. And so we are hoping to help the Grenada's authority. As I drove down to Morris Bishop Highway yesterday, we saw the police, they were doing their speed checks, and we wish that they can do that a bit more. So one of our intention would also be to help the police generate more instrument for checking speeds, cameras for registering people who exceed the speed limit or do infractions of the law. That would complement the traffic lights that are installed that have cameras with them. We are hoping to be able to complement that with sourcing some cameras that could be linked to the system that will help the police as well. And finally, we would make an appeal maybe later on for additional resources for traffic wardens and RGPF in terms of motorcycles and maybe patrol vehicles and so on that would be throughout to enforce the laws that are currently being revised in terms of ensuring that legislation is driven by the issue and they are relevant and current as things happen.
All right. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having me. Mr. McIntyre, thank you so much. I'm listening carefully to your talk, and I'm very much appreciative of that. I'm actually learning a lot from that, a lot of practical stuff, so I think you're doing a great job, and I wish to congratulate you on that. Thank God. I think it's very important, as you alluded to, even though you may not have used the word directly in terms of preemption. So we have a culture that don't recognize that, we may not recognize that preemption pays dividends. It's an investment in the future and in the safety, and we have to be more of a proactive people rather than just being reactive. And that brings me to that area from Food Fair to Wall Street. When you're moving, whether you're moving going south or north, you're basically confined to that narrow concrete area that is actually over a drain, I think, and right to the exactly next to the left of that area is a steep slope. Now, I'm concerned because when I was in Grenada a few times recently, I walked that area multiple times, and those concrete slabs are interrupted by sometimes relatively too large of a gap. And not only that, the slabs themselves are unstable. The problem is that while walking there, if you make a mistake or the slab move and you lose your balance a bit, you'll be basically thrown onto that corner road, that curved road, and it would be a miracle for you not to get run over by a vehicle. Not only that, if there are any boulders or so coming down from the hill to your left, and you try to escape, you'll be onto the road again. So I think that's an area that may cost quite a huge sum of money to get it right or semi-right, but I think the investment will pay dividends in the future. So maybe that's something you should look into and bring that, use your office to bring that to the attention of the authorities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for your contribution.
I really like this caller, and the intervention is really, really useful. And what I wish to add to what the gentleman has said here, this is what we want to encourage, that the Asha McIntyre Road Safety Foundation wishes to be the voice for those who may not have an avenue. And we would wish for people to be able to call in to us and bring it to our attention as we engage the authorities so that the changes can happen. Because it may not necessarily be financial, but just the voice to raise the issue could generate some change. And
sometimes a simple sign being erected so it could save the life of someone.
Absolutely. And the final thing I wish to say here that complements what the caller has said, what we are doing is what we call being proactive. And the things that you are able to prevent, you may not be able to measure it. One of our strongest intention is that of getting to the younger persons. Yes. Get to the children in school with road safety issues so that they can be cultured, and so we will generate different drivers. And the second entry point within our institution would be at almost the tertiary levels, ensuring that the people who would be the next in line for licensing, that there would be an avenue where they can get used to programs of road safety. So parents, look forward for the future. Your children will be coming to you. They will be learning to drive while in school, because our road safety program will be saying, let's drive while in school. Mm-hmm. These programs will be geared to teaching the youngsters about a vehicle, the safety and the unsafe issues, the do's and the don'ts on the street. And we are convinced that if you want to engender change, a good way to do it is through children, the future. If you are able to get through children, subsequently you'll get to the parents. Yes. And they can be the movers and the shakers of change. And this is one of the reasons why some of our activities or programs will be directed at generating that change through our future generation, the children.
All right. Let's take another caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning to you, caller. Go right ahead.
Yeah, talking about safety and road safety and talking about children, and one of the things we have to teach our children to know not to throw things like banana skin, mango skins, and so on in the road because it's dangerous. Someone could walk on that and it slip them right into the vehicle. Right? The lights at night, the different lights. As I said already, I don't know if there is vehicles for night and day now because when you travel in at night, there's certain lights that when you go and do inspection, they tell you cannot put it on your vehicle, but then you have to face the same lights in the night. So I think right across the board, I don't know if I'm making sense or not, maybe they are allowed. If some could have it, I feel everybody should have it. If you cannot stop, and you said you're dealing with a model from X amount of years to Y, therefore, let everybody carry the same set of lights at the night. And don't let, because your vehicle within a certain age range, you're free to do it because it come like that, and I, with an old vehicle, cannot put it on, and then at a disadvantageous position when it's at night. You know?
All right, caller, thank you for your contribution. Thank you so much for your contribution. So do you understand where the caller is coming from?
Oh, yeah. He is hinging on an issue that really touches law enforcement in terms of how we and the law is enforced to the letter. And I wish to say that hopefully in the not too distant future, when the police are more resourced,
yes,
even with their human resource that is beefed up within the RGPF, more police officers will be recruited and so forth. And the traffic department becomes a bit more rigid in enforcing the law throughout. Remembering that law enforcement is not an 8 to 4 function and a Monday to Friday. And in some cases, members of the public have been saying there's a limit of police officers late at nights.
Yes.
Enforcement of responsibility of law enforcement late at night is limited. And on weekends, it seems to be reduced. When the police, in the not too distant future, become more equipped and they have begun to enforce the law more rigidly or stringently, I hope that members of the public do not complain too much. We are clamoring for it. We would wish to see change. We would wish to see attitudes change for the better in terms of obeying laws and becoming more law-abiding, particularly in road safety issues and traffic situation. And one of the custodians of that happens to be police officers. And once they are adequately resourced and they are able to do their duties diligently, we are sure that we are going to see changes.
And then probably we may hear more complaints. Eh?
You will have more complaints, but it is for I think generally, the persons who seems to be delinquent and less law-abiding is at the minimum in Grenada.
Yeah.
We are not, by a large extent,
I will agree.
People who
I
are
don't think
not.
it's a majority of drivers. It's just a handful who are just doing these stuff on the road.
And we wish to be able to bring that through statistics to the nation in the not too distant future when we are able to, with the RGPF, zeroing on the kinds of people, the age of people, the areas, the demographics in Grenada where particular things are happening, and what initiatives are driven towards correcting it. Yeah. So we're on the right track, on right trend.
So, Mr. McIntyre, we get into that stage of the morning. We're going to take a wrap. And interesting conversation this morning, as always. You know, road safety is a key factor in terms of everything that we do in life today. Because, you know, for some reason, we're always going to need to travel on the nation's road.
Yes.
And traveling safely is utmost important. So we encourage road users to always follow the safety procedures that will save themselves and other road users in general. Any closing statement for me?
So in closing, once again, I wish to reiterate that road safety is not just about speeding, and road safety is not in the parish of St. George or the tongue of St. George or in the community of Grandance, Point Saline. It is a nationwide issue, and road safety is not just about vehicles. It's about pedestrians and it's about all issues that can impact on material and human life. And as we face the hurricane season, the rain season, we are encouraging everyone to be more vigilant, to be more aware of the type of vehicles and their preparedness for the road, and to ensure that the law is adhered to and that we are courteous and consistent with the principles of good behavior that Grenadians are supposed to be known for.
All right. So McIntyre, thank you once again. We do this next week. Of course, we'll come back with another interesting topic for our viewers and listeners. Hey, let me say thank you for all those of you who are viewing and listening to Classic Radio and GBN TV. Thank you once again for being part of To The Point. Join us again for another edition of To The Point. And as I would always say, be good to yourself and others. Have yourself a wonderful day. Goodbye.